My first time as chairman, so welcome aboard to this new term, and thank you for selecting me in that role, and also welcome you guys, man. We're all new at something tonight, every single one of us. So let's be patient with one another and learn and grow and make decisions together. One of my roles, I think, is an obligation to keep a meeting flowing. One of our most precious assets or resources is time. So to what extent I can, I'm going to try to keep us on the agenda. If I feel like it's getting extraneous, I'm going to ask us to come back. If I appear agitated or rude, it's because I'm nervous, and usually not agitated necessarily. But so if I appear rude, forgive me. I'm going to try to draw us into adhering to an agenda, staying on task, and adhering to parliamentary procedure rules. And our expert on that is Ms. Lehue. So.
No, not really, but I'll sure try.
Wrap it up. Okay. Having said that, we will begin on our agenda with approval of the minutes. And I believe, Vice Chair, you have a motion. After you, let me call the roll. Thank you. First order of business that I forgot. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Oliver?
Present.
Commissioner Davidson?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Boyd?
Here.
Commissioner McMurray?
Here.
Commissioner Gooch?
Here.
Commissioner Phillips?
Present.
Chairman Dodd?
Present. Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now let's continue with the approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 100% of our committee is newly appointed, so I reached out to previous Chairman Rhonda Allen to ask her to review the minutes from last month's meeting. She made a few minor edits to the minutes. Those have been completed, uploaded to SharePoint, so without objection, I will move to approve those minutes as presented.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you, Vice Chair. Good job. We will again proceed per our agenda, and our first visitor tonight is the Director of the Health Department, Mr. Byron Cumby. Please join us. If you would, state your name with some introductory remarks, and we'll go from there.
Yes. My name is Byron Cumby. I'm pleased to be joining Mayor Carr, the new commissioners here. Just a bit of background on me. My degree is in healthcare administration. I was hired at the Rutherford County Health Department by Ms. Dana Garrett back in 2019, and I thought I would settle into a nice, quiet little desk job there. And you all know what happened after that. You know, we've faced challenges that we hadn't seen in our lifetime, but we've kind of come through that now, and we're looking forward to resuming the people's business of just providing good, positive health care to the citizens of Rutherford County. Just to touch base with what's going on with our health department now, hopefully you received our August report. August is a busy month for us there at the health department. It's a perfect example of how the health and education kind of tied together. We've been getting students registered for school, and the way the health department interacts in that, we of course do vaccinations, but we also are responsible for providing the immunization certificate for students that they need to register for schools in Rutherford County. So anyone coming in from out of state would need to come to us to get those vaccine records transferred into the Tennessee database. We would then provide them with their certificate that would aid them in registration. So July and August, one of the busy times that we prepare for there. A little COVID update, hospitalizations and new cases are trending downward, and that's a great sign for us. The CDC just last Thursday lowered the community level rating in Rutherford County Rutherford County down to low. It had been at medium for a long time since our last spike, and we're hoping, given the winter months, that we can maintain that as long as possible. We do have testing available every day at the Rutherford County Health Department. We have rapid testing. We give out vaccines 8 to 10 in the morning, 1 to 3 in the afternoon. We have the new bivalent, the COVID vaccine booster that addresses specifically the Omicron variants. We have that available as well. For anyone 12 and older, the pediatric dose is pending approval, but that looks to be coming down the pike in the next few weeks. Monkeypox is another thing that's been in the news. Fortunately, our numbers have been very low in our county and in our region, and we did already have a vaccine available for that. So we have that vaccine available. We have testing available. If anyone has any kind of rash, they can talk to our disease intervention specialists, and we will get them care. Flu shots coming up. If you haven't already gotten your flu shot, that is available at the Rutherford County Health Department now. We have a Fight Flu Day in November, on November 9th. That's free flu shots for the community, and we hope you'll help us get that word out there. And that's kind of everything I have for you tonight. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to take those.
Any questions for Mr. Cumby?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Oliver?
Hey, how are you?
Yes, ma'am. I'm fine.
I have a question about the COVID vaccine and the number of children that are actually getting it. I run a child care center, and I noticed on our immunization record where we upload our data, the 2 COVID immunizations are there. So I'm just curious, what are the numbers looking like as far as children that are actually being immunized?
The number of utilization is probably a little low when compared to the national average, but we look for that as soon as that pediatric dose is announced. We hope to see an uptake in that. Every time there is a new headline that comes out, it kind of just raises awareness and gets people to kind of consider that option for themselves.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the date, November the 9th.
Yes, sir.
Did you say is that a free flu shot day? or-
Yeah, it's our Fight Flu program, and it's free flu shots, and that is all day. We are running a pod, if you will, in the morning where we'll kind of get you through in an express form, but all citizens are welcome to check with us on flu shots, and we will make those available to you.
Okay. And as far as, you mentioned getting the word out, do you have some type of flyer or anything that we can share?
We do, yes, sir. Thanks for asking. We do have those available on our website. We have them in English and Spanish, but if anyone is interested in any more materials, please reach out to us. I'll make sure that we can get those to you. Thank you. Sir?
Mr. Gooch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Cumby. This is my first time on this committee in years, so forgive me if I ask an obvious question, but on the environmental health inspections, are these inspections that are done routinely or because someone may have filed a complaint?
Kind of both situations there. Okay. And our environmental team, they do the routine inspections, but if someone does, file a complaint, they do create a report. They will follow up on that, and then they will make their findings known. But they do, as part of their regular course of activities, is to do routine inspections with restaurants and food trucks and, hotels, pools. They have a broad scope.
Any concerns?
Not
stand out
really.
at you at this?
As far as the information I've gotten, our environmental team is among the best and represents the county well. And yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gooch? Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the director's report.
So moved.
Second.
With a vote and a second, I will ask all those approved say aye. Any opposition? Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask one quick
Yes, sir.
question?
Please do.
Before you leave.
Sir.
Boosters, COVID boosters are available now. Are they the updated boosters with the most recent?
Correct, sir. Yes, they are called the bivalent booster, and they have 2 specific targets, the 2 most prevalent variants that are out there today. And so
Those are available now at the health department.
They are. Now, we do them with no appointment needed during our walk-in hours of 8 to 10 or 1 to 3, Monday through Friday. So citizens are welcome to come down and get those.
Mornings or afternoons, Monday
Yes,
through
sir.
Friday.
Yes, sir. And they're available for ages 12 and up now. And then, as I said, that pediatric dose will be coming down so we can
No
administer it.
cost.
That's right. Yes, sir. Still free. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Thank you, Mr. Crumby. Now, remind us all that when we speak, please be sure and hold that microphone up close. If it's down here, I can't hear you. So I assume you can on TV. I've never really had to witness that. But mic's up. We are going to move on to the community care report, and Mayor Carr is the director of the board at chairman of the board at Community Care. So tonight he'll be giving us some info on community care.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
On your SharePoint, you have the minutes of the September 1 meeting, and there is nothing of particular note there unless you have a question, and I'll be glad to entertain the question as a result of those minutes. I would like to bring your attention, if I could, to page 3 of the minutes, a third of the way down. Generations Connected. That is the proposed daycare facility expansion. We currently have 24 children enrolled in that daycare facility. The proposed expansion would take it to 128. As a result, from the minutes of the last meeting, we have discovered with finance, and you're certainly able to ask Mr. Smith these questions additionally, but we may have a funding challenge about how it's actually funded through piggybacking on an educational bond. I believe I made the statement recently that there was potentially an option. That may not be exactly correct. I know that Mr. Smith is having a meeting with Bassberry and Sims, who are the authorities about how a bond is originated and does it qualify under state law for an education bond. There are certain things in state statute that we are allowed to bond, and if that is not listed by state statute, then it is excluded. As I understand it, and Michael, you can chime in, but daycare facilities are not included in that list. And so, as a result, we're going to get some more legal clarification to determine if, indeed, we can go the route of piggybacking this facility on an education bond later, early part of next year. And if there are no questions, those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the committee? Mr. Gooch.
I was thinking that they decided to finance this themselves.
At one point, that is correct.
Okay.
And as a result of this meeting and subsequent conversations, the conversation then moved to find out what other options they had to find a lower rate. Obviously, taking advantage of Rutherford County's AAA bond rating would be advantageous, but in so doing, we subsequently found out that that may propose some legal challenges as it relates to its legality.
Right,
Are we allowed them able to do that?
So it may revert back to them doing
That's
their own
correct.
finances.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they can't build the facility. It just changes potentially the funding mechanism. Am I saying that right, Michael?
They still do. That was my understanding as well. Back, I think, in July was when it was presented to the previous commission that they were going to issue their own debt backed by their revenue. It has since been asked for us to look into to see if they could piggyback due to the advantageous interest rate the county would get. However, in doing some exploring with that, there would be some question as to whether they're allowed to do that or not. So we have a meeting this week. Additionally, no matter what happens, if for some reason we are allowed to allow them to piggyback off of a bond that we would issue, there is no way for the county to get around not being liable for that. So I just want that. I know that was a question asked, so I just want this committee to know that anytime the county is going to issue any type of general obligation bond, even if we sign a lease agreement with them, there's no repercussion. We would still have to pay that debt. So
if I may, if a default on behalf of community care reverts back to us.
Correct.
Correct.
That is correct.
And essentially, if we issue that bond, it wouldn't necessarily be a default per se, because we would be paying that bond payment. It would be a lease, almost like a lease agreement set up where they would pay us money, quarterly or monthly or however we wanted to set that up. However, if for some reason there was a natural disaster or something happened that there was, the revenue didn't pan out like they thought, we have no way of recapturing, we would still be on the hook for that bond.
Okay. So if their pro forma doesn't generate the revenue they anticipated, that they can't pay the bill in its entirety, we might have to make the difference.
Yes, that we
Or
have to pay the bond no matter what. Now, that would be up to Community Care as to how they came up with that money to pay us as the county. But there's nothing, we would still have to unequivocally pay that bond payment from the
So,
county.
If you would remind us, if you'll bear with me, we've approved funds but not funding. We've approved for the Community Care to build the building, put it that way.
We've approved for them to build the building, and my understanding since July was that, they were going to go out and issue debt on their own. Now, my understanding is they would still have to come back and us approve them issuing their own debt backed by their revenue. So they would still have to come back. That has been approved. There has been no funding approved from the county itself.
They have site plans that have been submitted, and they have, the minutes suggest Trail and Associates are ready to start engineering with potential bids in October. So who's paying the bills thus far for Huddleston Steel, for instance?
We are not. Their money does not run through the county books, so I would assume Community Care. But
We don't know who's paying it, we just know we are not.
Okay, and the Community Care are the ones soliciting the services from these professionals, not us.
that's correct.
Thank you. Do we
Mr.
need
Chair, motion to approve the report.
I was going to, thank you. So is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Second. Thank you. Mr. McMurray beat you to it, so. I think that we can do a voice vote on that as well. So all those in favor of approving the report, say aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, before we leave that, could you communicate this meeting schedule for Community Care, when they meet? What's the time frame?
The first Wednesday of the month, the first Thursday of the month. And what time of day is noon at Community Care. First Thursday. And so I think this may be an opportunity for me to segue. I'm going to bring something up from other business. And the last I heard, Steering had acknowledged a vacancy for a commissioner on the Community Care Board. Do we know if that position's been filled? So to our knowledge, applications have been submitted? Yes. Okay. Still have time to. If there is anyone on this committee that would consider being on the board of Community Care as the commission representative, applications are at the mayor's office, I believe I read in the minutes. And those applications still have the duration of time they can be filled out and submitted. No pressure, it's just there if anybody wants to participate. Now we will move on to item number 4, special projects report, and we'll let Mr. Smith take that one.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the report itself. If you have a question about the specific project, a detailed construction question, that'll be up for the school board to answer. My office can only answer a lot of the finance questions for special projects, and that's really, it's called special projects, but it's really all the projects the school systems have going on that are capital funded through our Fund 189. But I do want to talk a little bit about a couple of things on this report I want to draw your attention to. So the first thing, and I don't have it on SharePoint in front of me, but if you will flip to page 3 of the actual progress report, it's page 3, and you'll see land right there in the middle of the page. Does everybody see that?
I'm sorry, Mike, just a sec. Let's make sure everybody gets there. If we're getting new to the SharePoints and the format's new, we good to go? Thanks, Mike.
Okay. So one thing I want to point out, and this is just I'm picking land because it's easy to explain. If you'll look across there, what I want you to take from that column is the schools still have money where they can go and buy land. So they still currently today have $4.3 million. But as you can look and see, there was an original budget, an amended budget, and then we have since contracts to date and expended to date. That's where we have bought land out of that project. So we have projects that are open, for schools. So for example, also at the bottom of that page is Plainview Middle. Obviously, there is not a Plainview Middle right now. There has been funding for site development for that project, some architect costs, in conjunction also with Plainview Elementary, where there is actually a building. Does that make sense to everybody, is how this sheet flows financially? Okay, then the last thing I want to bring you attention to, if you'll flip to the page 6. And you should see Oakland High School Edition. And this is just an example of something that happens quite a bit. This also happens at the county level on projects, not just schools. But for example, the commission has approved to fund in a future bond proceeds the funding for design costs for a potential addition at Oakland High School. But the funding itself has not been approved. So ultimately what that means is we have spent money for this project, and even though there's a budget of $1.2 million for this project, we don't have $1.2 million for that. The commission approved that contingent upon a future bond proceed to cover that cost. We're using cash flow from other projects to fund the planning of these projects. Does that make sense? And there should be a big long spreadsheet attached in SharePoint that will look very similar to kind of what I'm holding up. Just want to make sure everybody sees that. That should be on your SharePoint. In the very last column will be the Oakland High Edition. And as you can see, there was funding. We transferred $12,000 as part of funding that. So we are still $1.1 million short in funding and physical cash for that project. I just kind of want to explain the way the spreadsheet works, and the way it kind of works is we keep up with that. A lot of times we fund these projects. You have to have funding prior to going to bid for these projects, because it takes a lot of work to get those bids and the architectural designs together. So that's what this report does. It goes through and lists all the projects. Now, you'll notice some projects on here are older. So as long as the project still has money associated with it, it will be on this list. When a project is completed and it has leftover money, you as the commission can move that to another project or obligate that another way, and then that will remove that project from this report. Any questions about that, or does that all make sense?
May I?
Oliver, please.
I do have a question. I need you to, I don't know if you ever remember the movie Philadelphia, but I need you to kind of explain to me like I'm 6 years old. When you said Oakland High Edition funded but not funded, can you clarify that a little bit more for me?
So a lot of times the commission will say, we're going to go ahead and approve expenditures of, in this example, they approved expenditures of $1.2 million for Oakland High School. However, that was to be funded with a future bond proceeds. Well, we're not going to go to the bond market until the school system comes back with bids. So we essentially take money, cash flow-wise, from another project on this list and use to pay the physical bills for the architects and design costs for that project. So there was no cash flow into this fund to actually pay for it. So you as the commission did give us as the finance office permission to start spending money up to $1.2 million with the intent of borrowing money down the road to essentially pay for that $1.2 million. Does that make sense?
In essence, you borrowed money
From
internally and are going to pay that back.
Correct.
when you go to the
That
bond market.
was my follow-up.
Correct, yes.
That was my follow-up.
Because as you'll notice, a lot of these projects in here have, I don't want to say excess money, but money that maybe we haven't spent yet, you know. It also, there's projects in here that you'll see that maybe the project is really close to being done, because we always want to borrow a tad more than the project is actually worth, because I would much rather have a little left over than I would, you know, not have enough. So that's how we're able to use that cash flow to fund these architectural costs. And I'm just using Oakland High as an example in here to show you how the spreadsheet works. You'll also see that as well at the county level when you appropriate money to build buildings like the One Stop building and things like that, where we'll use internal money for the design process and then essentially repay ourselves with a bond issue.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Any other questions, Mr. Gooch?
Just one quick question. So on the unobligated, if, for an example, we have some money left over from a high school project, if that money is moved to support an elementary school project, is that subject to share?
Let me speak to that, because I knew I should have spoken to that sooner. So as y'all know here, and I'll give a little backstory here for the newer commissioners here. As you know, we have a city school district here in Murfreesboro. We share money with them. We share all local revenues with them, except there's one or two exceptions. But we share that with them based on an ADA rate, which is called the average daily attendance. That rate is calculated by the state and sent to us. So I'm going to give you another example. So on sales tax, all 50% of sales tax has to go to education. Out of that 50%, a certain percentage of what would go to education goes to the city school system and comes to us. It's the same with bond proceeds. So if we go borrow for an elementary school, we have to share a percentage, and sometimes that means borrowing more so that we get what we need for the project. So, for example, in Commissioner Gooch's question, high school money stays with high school money and middle school money stays with middle school. Elementary stays with elementary projects. So, for example, on Plainview Elementary, you could move that money to go towards a future land for elementary or elementary construction or addition. Now, we do it on a percentage basis when it comes to a middle school that is 6-8. And the reason that is because Murfreesboro City Schools is a K-6 district. So we do it on a percentage basis. Now, one of the things you could do if you have money left over from elementary school is essentially fund leftover money there for a third of a middle school that was going to be 6-8. So you would go borrow for the 7th and 8th grade portion and not have to share those proceeds. So, did that answer?
I think so, but if, for example, on Plainview, it looks like there could very well be some money left over, and if the school board decide, okay, they looked at everything and they
Well, that
need
money is
a
already
little-
shared. So yes.
So if it did move to high school, we would have to share.
If you were using high school money left over for an elementary school, yes. But the elementary portion that's already borrowed is already shared.
Right. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? And I believe we need to, I'll entertain a motion to approve the finance director's report.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Was that enough money to, it wasn't transferring money? So I'm going to ask for a voice vote on this. All in favor of this, approve the support, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. And to clarify, some of you guys have only been to one meeting. I think you did public safety, the mail this week. So I'm bouncing off Rachel here. If we're not expending funds or moving funds, we can do a voice vote. So, and if we're expending funds, we're going to have a roll call so we know exactly with clarity and precision who's voted in what way. So, all right. So now we will move on to item number 5, which is the school board report. And I'm going to invite Brian Runyon to come up, and I'd also like Trey Lee to come up if you don't. So Brian is the new finance director of Rutherford County Schools, and actually an assistant superintendent, I believe, is a title. And I'll let Brian introduce himself, but new finance director at schools, that's $500 million. New finance director for the county, that's 500 plus our 300. Yeah. And so just a lot of new faces, but some really capable people. So, gentlemen, thank you. Introduce yourself, Brian.
That's not a lot of money. Good afternoon. My name's Brian Runyon. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Budget Finance at Rutherford County Schools. New commissioners, Mayor Carr, welcome. It's nice to work with y'all. I'm looking forward to that. Just like y'all, I'm relatively newly appointed, started July 1st. So it's going to be a learning process, I'm sure, through at least this first year. So, but basically my background comes, I'm a graduate of MTSU. I graduated there in 2007. I'm currently in the process of finishing my master's, so I should have that by the end of December. I worked for the state in TDOE as a fiscal consultant for 7 years, and then briefly went to Marshall County as their finance director, and now I'm back here where I live to do this job. So, like I said, I look forward to working with each and every one of you. My goal in this job is to provide you with transparency on what we're doing in the school system. And I believe this first agenda item that we have, or that we're presenting to the new committee here, is one of those things that's going to show a little bit of transparency in what we're trying to do with that. So I will go ahead and read. What this is a motion to approve a salary increase, and then it's also the actual budget amendment to move the money in between lines of the same account number in the general purpose budget. So the first item is the motion to recommend a salary increase to RCS Budget and Finance Department personnel. This motion recommends a salary increase of at least 5% to be provided by the budget and finance, or to be provided to the budget and finance personnel due to the increased workload and salary inequities. Staff will also receive an additional amount between $500 to $1,000 for qualifying degrees such as associates, bachelor's, or master's. This request is budget neutral and will not increase the Fund 141 general purpose budget. It will only require transferring RE budgeted FY 22-23 funds between salary line items. The recommended motion is to approve the salary increase of the budget and finance personnel of at least 5% and include the additional amounts of $500 to $1,000 for staff who possess a qualifying degree. And I would also like to mention, I did send Commissioner Wilson, and I don't know if he was able to share that with everyone. Okay, if it's on SharePoint, of what that's actually going to cost, or what the additional increase in that particular salary increase is.
And thank you. So this is a good opportunity to ask questions. We can go through this by line. This is new, the language is new, and the format's new. And I'd like Brian to take just a second. We have these documents in our SharePoint. And Brian, if you could help us. So the top item is a motion that talks about what's the purpose. The second motion actually transfers the money approved by the first motion. So
correct. So
it's going to look complicated, y'all. But
so the first motion, what it is to approve the actual salary increase that we're trying to provide to our budget and finance personnel. The second motion is where we actually, because in the purchasing line item of the general purpose budget, there is not enough funding in there to be able to provide it for 2 staff members that we are giving the increase to. So we're moving it from another salary line item. So basically what we're doing is we're transferring from one salary line item to another salary line item in the same account number or in the same function.
And what is that line item number?
It is, let me see here. It is it's 141, which is the fund, which is the general purpose fund. It's 72,510. 105 is the line item, and it's transferring it to 72,510, 122, which is the purchasing personnel.
And the names listed here, those are the people who will be getting the raises, is that correct?
Everyone that you see except the ones in red.
Except the ones, okay, gotcha. And then the total amount is $50,336.
That is for the personnel in the Fund 141. So there is a Fund 143, which is our centralized cafeteria fund, who we have one person that we have paid out of there. but that's what it's going to cost, but we're not having to transfer any money there because it's already budgeted in that line item.
Okay, so so the request is to go from 105 to 122 in the
Or
amount,
for the 50,000.
for the 50,000,
Yes.
332.
I just wanted to show the total cost of everybody that was getting the actual raise. So one of our personnel, like I said, has been paid out of 143, but we're not requesting to transfer any funds in that fund. And the 50,000 you will see is over an 8-month period because this is not going to be effective until November 1st. That's whenever we'll put it into effect. So essentially that'll be 8 months worth of pay to them. So if you look over to the left of that, that is the actual cost, total overall cost over a 12-month period. The $75,504.46 and the $6,479.55.
Phillips?
Simply put, no new money. All you're doing is transferring internal money from one account to the next, and it happens on a regular basis.
It absolutely does, but because this is transferring between salary line items, it's required that we bring it all the way up to the commission. So,
But it is a 5% raise, average 5%, of at least 5%.
it's an average.
Personnel that were left out of the raises that went through in budget season, is that correct?
They actually got the 5%. What this is providing at least 5% to my staff, and this is historically what I'm going to put out there. Probably in the last 15 to 20 years, you would have never seen an increase or a salary increase for my staff. So right now, we're short-staffed. We're bringing on an additional amount of funding as far as new grants. They're having to work extra hours. We're trying to navigate, as Michael can speak to, looking at doing a new payroll system, which is going to also bring on additional amount of workload to them while we're trying to do that transition. So what it's doing is it's giving everybody at least 5%. It's also funding those, rewarding those who have some type of a degree, which in the past we have never, if you look at our salary schedules, we never paid additionally for an additional degree. So that's the thing that also, which I don't know if Dr. Sullivan's going to be here to talk to, but our salary study is going to show some of this stuff to where we can actually hopefully combine our multitude of salary schedules that we have at the board to narrow it down to a few. But that salary study is not going to be complete until the end of December, and it's one of those things that we're, with this goes ahead and gets this personnel for those salary inequities and those shortages over the years. This actually gets them to go ahead and be paid for it. So.
And the entire 85 plus 6, 75 plus 6 will be in the budget next year. It's just a new salary when you present to your board.
Yes, it'll be the same amount. I mean, that's just going to carry over into next year as well. I mean,
Okay.
So it's not an increase. It's not increasing the budget one bit. It's just, it'll be in a different line item.
Dr. Sullivan, you could have just taken your time, man. These guys got it covered.
They're good staff, aren't they?
They are.
Sorry for my delay.
No worries, no worries. Before we disrupt, I want to introduce you, but I think we need to clear this up with a motion. If we are open for discussion, so we're seeking to move to give the raises, and then we'll move $11,600 in the next motion into the appropriate line. So if anybody cares to do a motion for the item number 1.
I actually have a question.
Please do.
About the verbiage. You said at least 5%. What would the maximum be? Or why doesn't it just say 5%?
If you look over on the far right side of this sheet right here, you'll see the total percentage that each person is getting. The minimum amount is 5%, and it goes all the way up to 16%. And what that is the 16% is for those positions that are advanced positions, and historically, like I said, should have already been increased in pay, but have not been, so they're inequities. So that's the reason why there are 3 positions getting 16%, and then 1 position that's getting 10%. So the reason for that is because those 3 positions that are getting 16% have been there 15 or more years. The one that's 10% has been there less than 10 years. So that's how that is. And the rest of them are a 5%. And then what's bumping them up to a 6 and 7% is the additional $500 or $1,000 that they're getting for a degree, having a degree.
Thanks so much. I did not have all of the paperwork spread out, so my apologies.
I'm glad you asked. It helps us all to dig in. And this has been approved by the school board.
Chairman, thank you. That was actually my question. I believe this was brought up at the September 15th Board of Education, and did it pass unanimously through? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to mention that as well.
I'll entertain a motion if there's no more discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
So
I'll move.
moved.
Do I have a second? Having heard a motion and a second on request to approve, we can do a voice call, and if we have a motion to move the funds, we'll have to do a roll call. So those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Brian, if you would clarify the item number 2.
Item number 2 is an amendment that reallocates $11,600 in current budgeted certified and classified pay, the transfer of $11,600 from account 72510105 Supervisor Director line to 72510122 Purchasing Personnel line, covers the additional amount of pay increase for our purchasing personnel. This amount was already approved in the supervisor salary line item of the fiscal service budget for the FY 22-23 school year. This is a budget neutral amendment and no new funds are being used. The recommended motion is to amend current budgeted certified and classified pay by transferring $11,600 from account 72510105 to 72510122 as presented.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or a motion?
I move to accept the recommended motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, any other discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Davidson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd?
Yes.
Commissioner McMurray?
Yes.
Commissioner Oliver?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Chairman Dodd?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Good job. I'd like the opportunity to introduce Mr. Trey Lee, and I'll have Dr. Sullivan do the proper introduction, because I'm going to use the wrong title. I'm going to call him Director of Engineering or something. So I'd like y'all to meet Trey Lee, and please introduce yourself.
I am Jimmy Sullivan. I'm our Rutherford County Director of Schools, started officially July 1st. Before that, I was a Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and that is Trey's official title. He is the Assistant Superintendent for Construction and Engineering, is that the correct way of wording it? And student support and a lot of other things that don't necessarily involve anything else. Trey and Brian kind of get stuck with those. But thank you guys. Sorry I couldn't be here to start off right away. We had a school board meeting that started at 5 and I got here as soon as I possibly could. But I look forward to working with every single one of you. I've met several of you. We'll continue to meet the rest of you so that we can have a good working partnership. I tell you, my overall vision for our district is yes, our district does have some weaknesses, but overall our district is a district of strength, and we need to celebrate that strength that we have, and that's largely in part of the funding that we get from our county commission. So please know that we realize that, we appreciate that, and I strive for us to have a great relationship between the county school system and our county commissioners, health and ed, budget, all those different meetings. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. And thanks for rushing. Sorry you did indeed
No,
have
you
to
were good.
rush. Trey, any comments?
Quickly, I'm Trey Lee. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Engineering and Construction. I oversee most of the Special Projects Fund. We call it the Capital Projects Fund. The building, construction, engineering, maintenance, transportation, informational technology.
Everything that doesn't fit anywhere.
So if you have any questions, I'm available. Be glad to help you. The Special Projects Fund is unique. I'll probably use some terms that I've been in this position for 4 years and came out of private construction management for over 30 years. So I'm available, be glad to answer any questions and help you in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey, and thank you all. I know that Trey will be advocating for a 5-year plan that I mentioned when we were all selected to this committee. And that's just a rolling 5-year plan that's millions and millions of dollars. It's the best guess the school board can make on where to put schools and what age group, and that changes every few months as development occurs and population shift. And also the repair and maintenance. That's not special project. That's capital projects is another item that Trey advocates for. And so I've grown to have a great deal of trust in Trey, and he's got a very tough job, a lot of moving parts, and the bucket of money is not as big as his needs. So I look forward to working with you, Trey, and I think that we're going to be a very compatible group, and I hope would you conclude us, please?
Last thing I will do every time that I'm here is just give you an update of where we are as a school system so that you have an idea. I also will send you we do a monthly report on our attendance so that you can see what our enrollment status is. We do that once a month. We'll have that, I believe, the second week in October, and I'll share that with you all just through email so that you'll see what our school trends look like, what our enrollment was from May of last year to where we are right now. Just to give you an idea, we're up about 800 students from where we were in May. So we've officially crossed the 50,000 student threshold. Just a couple years ago, we were at 46.5, 46.6. We are growing very quickly in all of our areas, but on the north and the west side, the quickest. And so I'll bring those kind of concerns. But overall as a district, it is, for the last 3 years with COVID and all those things happening, this school year's kind of been a reset, set trends, make sure we have communication with our community, and just kind of reestablishing some of those things. And I'm happy to answer any question.
Mr. Chair, is the capital, the 5-year plan, is that going to be presented next month, or?
And not tonight. There was an error.
Okay.
And we tried to retract that, so I'm sorry
That's
you
fine,
didn't get
that's
the
fine.
updated.
And just like to mention, there's one more role that Trey plays that's not mentioned. That Trey is the chairman of the Bald Head Club, and this Trey is the vice chair. So I want to bring that out.
Very good. And I think we have some candidates here that you might want to consider. And I hope to never join you, but I'm getting there.
I'll probably be joining soon.
I'm not, no more comment.
I walked off on that.
Yes, indeed.
I'm doing this, I'm not touching that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Gooch. And thank you, guys. We are going to move on. So that brings us to any other business.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Everybody maybe needs
Mr.
to come
Phillips.
back up. Reoccurring question that relates to charter school system that we've talked about in the past, and I think we have three
Potential,
at
yes.
this particular point in time. I just want to clarify state funding versus local funding.
Correct,
That's
yes.
question number one.
Yep. So question number one, so we do have one charter school that was authorized by the commission last year, and without going into a huge, long history there, the local Board of Education denied it last year during the 21 cycle. The Charter Commission overturned that, and so the state, for all intents and purposes, runs that charter school, Rutherford Collegiate Prep. It is not open yet. They don't have a facility yet. And so when they do open, since that is run by the state, we are moving to the TISA funding next year. And so that should come straight from the State Department since that is a state-run entity. We do have one that is Springs Charter School that our board approved, and so they approved that in July. That one will be a mixture of state and local because that is one that is our district. We have agreed into an authorization contract that we are authorizing them. Those will be Rutherford County students. They wouldn't be able to have outside of district students because that's their charter agreement. They are also struggling to find space, and the one that has gotten the most attention, American Classical Rutherford, connected with Hillsdale ACR. That one goes before the Tennessee Public Charter Commission on next Wednesday, and next Wednesday they will make that decision. We expect the executive director's report at some point in the next couple of days. However, as what occurred last year. The executive director last year found in our school board's approval, but the commission overturned that at that point too. So even regardless of what her report says, Tess Stovall, she's executive director, they could take it either way next Wednesday.
So to clarify, state funds versus local funds, we're not anticipating spending any local funds on the charter schools, at least in the foreseeable future.
Not for next school year. Springs possibly when they come on board for the 23-24 school year, because they would be authorized just like Rutherford County School.
Any way for us to become a little bit more proactive as it relates to the location of those schools, especially in overcrowded areas?
So we are trying, and so that has been a long discussion. So part of what we are allowed to do with the charter school just application process is we can designate, and this will go on the state's website on November 1st. I believe that's the date, November 1st. And we are asking for, if you're a charter school interested in Laverne, in our overcrowded Blackman Smyrna area with ESL students or students with disabilities, if you have a need there, those are some of our needed areas. Outside of that, the charter school can tell us they plan to build here, but there is no requirement that they have to. The only requirement comes into when they are under contract with us, if we authorize. If we don't authorize, like Rutherford Collegiate Prep, for example, that the commission authorized last year, they said North Rutherford County. That's not necessarily the only place they're looking at, but we don't have any jurisdiction in there. It's county specific. There has been a lot of conversation around what happens if they operate in the Murfreesboro City Schools. And so our argument has been, the state chose to approve that. The state needs to figure that issue out. That is not for us to decide or us to debate, because you chose to approve them. You're their authorizer. You deal with it. And I know that may be kind of harsh, but that wasn't our choice to authorize them.
One quick follow-up
Please.
on charter schools. You talked about Hillsdale, and they're specific as it relates to what subject? Hillsdale.
Mm-hmm.
What type of school is that?
They're a classical academy, so the American Classical.
Would you use your microphone, please?
Could we be a little bit more proactive as it relates to that need that the community may have?
Yes.
And I understand that Williamson County, and I'm not sure about this, I've just heard that Williamson County has asked for a charter school that relates to special need kids,
Yes.
such as autism, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
It's exactly, we put that on our application last year, and it'll be there for the state. But then again, it comes down to whether or not someone chooses to do that. But yes, you are 100% correct. That is going to be on the state's website. Here are all the districts accepting applications, which is really every district in the state of Tennessee now. But here are the ones: Knox, Williamson, Metro, Rutherford, and Shelby specifically outline, here's what we really need your help in.
Maybe if I could just ask one more question, maybe just one
Yeah,
more
go.
question.
You're fine, anytime.
The addition to our high schools, we've been talking about that for a good long while. We mentioned it a little earlier tonight,
Okay.
especially about funding mechanism and how that's going to happen. I'm a little bit concerned. At Public Safety last night, the question was asked, is the Sheriff's Department involved in the security portion of the addition of those high schools, which is extremely important in at least one or two of those high schools? And the answer was no, that they've not been invited, and that they've asked to be invited. And I'd just like an explanation as to why the Sheriff's Department has not been invited to look at the security issues at those additions.
Yeah, that's something that we can definitely fix and look to see why they haven't been invited, because we have to have a partnership. You know, our SROs are funded by our county sheriff's department, and that is a huge asset to our county. So anything we can do to increase that partnership, or ultimately it falls on us as a school district to maintain and support and secure that building, I think, but the more partnership we can have, the better.
That is the perfect answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just one more question from Mayor Carr.
Trust me, this is so much easier than the first time I had to do this. I had to come stand up here and discuss the first charter school application in 2020, so I could do this all day compared to that.
Dr. Sullivan, good
Yes,
to see
sir.
you.
You as well.
I was talking to Michael a little bit, and with regard to TESSA funding and the modeling of that funding and how those funds are going to proceed to us in the 23-24 year, I assume you're constantly modeling that to anticipate what those funds are. Are you in a position to kind of let us know what that modeling looks like going forward, or is
Yeah,
that a little
I can
bit
do a report on that for the next meeting. I'll do a whole report on it. If that sounds good.
That would be fantastic.
great.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I think my biggest concern around TISA, that's our new funding formula, is that in talking with the State Department, the State Board doesn't approve the rules for it until their October 28th meeting. So that's the earliest the State Board can even get it moving. And so by that point, we're starting, if not already beginning conversations with our budget. They are not planning on doing training until early spring at the earliest, which is very late for us in the budget process. And so they are, to some degree, the law is written, of course, something that I will bring to your attention that is huge, and I thank you for asking that, Mayor. There's part of TISA that says fast-growing infrastructure stipend, and that is for districts that are growing at a 2% increase. As a district, we grow at a 2% increase every single year. However, the way that is written into the law right now, it is on a 3-year average. No district in the state of Tennessee will be eligible for that extra 2% of funding because of the COVID year. We still grew. We didn't grow 2% during the 2021 school year. So I've asked our local delegation with the General Assembly to please help support us on that, because 2% to develop infrastructure with the size of our state budget would be huge in addressing some of our needs. I mean, you're talking multiple millions of dollars. And that's only going to apply to 3 or 4 districts in the state overall, because most of them are shrinking. And so I feel confident that our state delegation has that on their radar, but that's something that I'm going to ask our county commissioners and our health and ed as well to just keep that on the radar. The more that we can ensure we get the funds that we need to build schools, that's a game changer for us.
Please keep us posted.
I will. That is a game changer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Smith?
I do want to clarify, the growth funding he's talking about is in addition to the regular growth funding. And one thing to consider going forward is usually growth funding came in February to March. They are now going to start sending, hopefully, growth money in October, November. So I just wanted to clarify that. We're not missing out on the other growth money that we would normally get.
Additional, which would be amazing.
Thank you, Board of Education. Appreciate it. This brings us to other business, and I have 3 items, if I'll let anyone else go first, if there's any other business. Number 1, I just had failed to ask Rachel this question. Do we have any holiday applications on our calendar? I haven't gone all the way through. We'll, by next month even, or sometime between now and then, we'll look, see if we have anything that falls too close to, I'll make sure that none of our meetings conflict with holidays. I hadn't gone through the whole year. Have y'all been able to hear me previously? I've been sitting back. And so thank you. So yes, please. Thanks for letting me know that. The second item is I want to acknowledge that I'm filling some shoes of Rhonda Allen, former commissioner, and I think Rhonda had the school board and our agendas and our minutes and an awareness of the Board of Education, and I just want to thank Rhonda for placing us in a position to hit the ground running. So thank you, Ms. Allen, if you're watching. And my last item is I've been made aware of a principal, Mrs. James has been the principal of Smyrna. Make sure I get this right. Which school? Smyrna primary principal for many years, and she is choosing to step down. So we just want to acknowledge an educator tonight, Mrs. James. Godspeed and good luck in your next endeavor. With no other business, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Second? We're adjourned.
Second.